Hello, Gary Champion once again. And I'm going to restate something that I did in a video recently where I said term limits were a good idea. And someone sent me an email back, which I much appreciate because you saying that led to this video. So I love it. She said, well, we have term limits. That means we vote. No, you don't have term limits. You don't. You just think you do. Anybody in the Congress or House or Senate, as soon as they get in office, they begin taking special interest money. I'm not telling you anything that isn't on the news every day. NRA, oil companies, people who want to put a pipeline in, voting registration, gerrymandering. They give money to get these guys to legislate the way that they want them to. So again, rich get richer, poor get nothing. See what I'm talking about? So as soon as they're in their office, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they have a contingency. They have a little cadre of money people who pay them money where they can run these large cap campaigns that ordinary person can't compete against. That's why no one who's in the Congress or the president is poor. They're all millionaires. They have to be in order to run. Except if you're a poor senator and you've got a constituency of special interest groups and oligarch, and I did a video a couple of years ago about that, that's what runs this country. You don't think we wouldn't have bans on assault weapons out here on the street if it wasn't for the NRA and special interest groups that want to sell those things? We wouldn't have them. Our air would be clean. Instead, they've rolled back all the restrictions on air quality. President undid all those. Why? Because his constituency that pays money and stays in his hotels and buys his stuff pay him. It's an out and out bribe. I'm sorry, that's all it is. It's a bribe. But we put up with it because that's the kind of government we have. Here's some money for your election. Vote for big whatever they're selling. Zither widgets. We have a bunch of zither widgets we need to sell, and we can't sell them because the market's not conducive to it. So if you fix that little problem, then we'll give you some money. Wink, wink, nod, nod. If you're waking up to this, this is the way the government works. This is the way it works. I hope that you know this, and I'm not the sole arbiter of good taste because I'm not. We put up with it. You want to know why? And I know you're dying to know why. Why? Because in order to put a 4 or a 6 term limit on senators and congressmen and all that, they would have to vote for it. Isn't that interesting? The government, and if you notice, anytime money's needed, they vote themselves a raise, and they do it on a midnight on a Sunday where no one will see it being done. It's never on a daytime. You can't see it on television. It's done in the middle of the night, and they all wink, wink, nod, nod. We get $50,000 more. They never do it on prime time. Why? Because people are tired of it. They themselves would have to vote on term limits for congressmen. And the last time I looked, snakes do not commit suicide. Snakes don't commit suicide. But let's say that 51% of them decided to vote for it and it got in. That would mean 4 to 6, that's okay. Term limits, president has 2 terms. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in office 4 terms, 16 years, until they changed the law. Why? Because it gave him too much power. 16 years, you know everybody. You can do anything. Now, he was a benevolent president. He didn't make the air dirty for money. And that's why the air in Texas is dirty. That's why the air in New York City is dirty, because they've undone all of the protective things that we had. They couldn't emit a certain amount of particulate matter. Those have been rolled back. Why? Because big business has paid our government to undo them. Our president. I'm just going to say it right out loud. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. That's why we have dirty air. That's why children will die from lung damage right down here because the oil is too dirty to live and the air is too dirty to live in. I'm on a preacher box, aren't I? I need a preacher hat. Need a frock coat, a little bow tie, a little string tie. It's never going to happen. Constitutional amendment to change, and that's what it would take, or I think, because those things were said a long time ago. There was no time limit set on presidents. Presidents served 1 or 2 terms and got out because they were good guys. Kind of, okay, well, my time's done. Washington could have served till he died. He said, no, I got to get out. This is not how our country, we don't need monarchy in our country. That's why we fought the Revolutionary War. That's why we kicked them back to England. That's why King George isn't here today charging rent where you live. There were no restrictions on president until post-World War II. I think it was the Truman administration. I'm not for sure. I'm not a history buff. But they eventually had to say 2 terms is it, because the man got too much power. And very much like a dictatorship. He was a good dictator, but he could have been bad. We've seen those. Term limitations eliminate the need for money because they're not going to run a campaign. They're not going to be there long enough to vote on legislation to screw up something where an oligarch can have a lower tax base, or they can not have to clean the air of the products they make. They just dump sewage in the water. There's no money to elect a guy for 1 term or 2 terms because it doesn't benefit him. The money goes away. The malfeasance goes away. The bribes go away. I'm calling them bribes. They're saying, oh, contribute. It's a contribution. That's what they call it. It's a contribution to their campaign fund. And there's limits, but they've gotten around that. They just use all these shell people to donate the money, make up names, put them in there. No one ever looks. Why? Because when they get in office, they want to do the same thing. Snakes don't commit suicide. But if you limit the term, the number of terms they can run, the number of years that they can be in office is short. Some of these guys are 90 years old. They're so far removed from the reality of the people that live in this country that they shouldn't be there. They're still putting Brill cream in their hair and watching Marcus Welby on TV. Their sense of reality is skewed. We need people in these offices that are young enough that they know what the pulse of the country is and how to balance the economy, the ecology, the health care. It can be done. They don't want to do it because there's no money in it. And big lobbyers pay them not to. You think that we'd have reform in the way lawyers do business? You betcha, if they weren't voting on it, because they're all lawyers. Very few people, except our president, who's not a lawyer. I'm not sure what he is, but he's not a lawyer. Because they've caught him breaking the law so many times, all his little stuff's been repealed back. But in the meanwhile, it takes him 2 years to do it, and we have to suffer through whatever he's done. But if lawyers have to vote on lawyer reform, it's never going to happen. Most lawyers are snakes, and they'll tell you so. They're proud of it. Each one of them would have a snake pit in their office if they thought it wouldn't hurt business. It's all about the money. It always has been. It always will be. You eliminate the need for money to run for a campaign. You eliminate the influential groups that are running our country, and maybe something will get done. These guys would be 40 years old, 50 years old, and they'd be out of office. They wouldn't be allowed to just build this. It's almost impossible to get somebody out of office once they're in because they have the money. Look at the faces of these guys. Look how old they are. Look at Mitch McConnell. Geez, is he like 100? Because they build a base of money within their own state that guarantees them reelection. Used to be called the big machine. The machine would get out the vote. They'd pay people. People would vote 2 or 3 times. People just kept getting elected. How could this happen? In the old days, they were using people they dug up out of a cemetery. They'd take their names and vote, change suits, come back and vote again. Same kind of thing. Bad government begets bad government. Take the money out, add term limits, everything changes. Laws get passed that might help us. Why? Because that's the way they could stay in office. They could say, I voted for that Clean Water Act. I voted not to make $400 billion worth of an airplane that by the time the damn thing flies is obsolete. I didn't vote for that one. Because right now, the desert out here is full of planes that are parked that never flew. Part of they overproduce. They got to keep these companies in business and make planes, so they order. They order planes they can't use. They can't sell them because the sophisticated ones that everybody wants, with all the radar and tracking stuff, they can't sell those. It'd be against our country's best interest. I say this is the same thing. When a person be in office 40 years, it's against the best interest of the country. It's against the best interest of you and me and the people who live here and do most of the living and dying. Not this minority of people, 200 people running the government that are taking money from people in order to vote the way they want them to vote. Term limits work. Say just vote for somebody. Oh, just vote them out. Doesn't happen because all the money's on their side. And occasionally they get a few bridge or a road or something put in as a part of that. Graft, nepotism, rascalism. So I hope I've explained this correctly. If I've missed something, I'm not going to apologize. That's not what we do on the Gary Champion YouTube hour. We state what I know. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But I believe I see this one pretty clearly. Term limits for anybody that serves in any government, local, state, federal. The mayor of a town can only serve so many terms, not just keep re-electing the same guy because nothing gets done. And people are very sophisticated now. They know how to graft. They know how to bribe and pay people without getting caught. Used to they didn't. They got caught all the time. They get a slap on the wrist. They go back to doing it again. Term limits takes the money out of it. The money is where the problem is. And these horrible people we elect wouldn't be so horrible. Greed makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. At the heart of these people, they're probably all fine people, upstanding, have children, homes, go to bake sales. They're normal people. But you throw money in, he says, yeah, I'm not going to get elected. What is my family going to do? I'll have to live Washington and go back to Podunk and farm turnips. What am I going to do? Career politician. It's a mistake. 40 years in office and you ain't got it right yet. 2 terms, doesn't matter. Good or bad, you're out. Pretty clear, huh? So I'm saying term limits for any elected official. any elected official. Set a term limit, 4, 6, 8, 2, whatever you want. But there has to be an end to it, because once big money is entered into the market, you cannot get them out of office, because they run all the splashy ads. They have the big meetings and conventions and parties and woo people. I'll give you this if you give me that. It's a never ending cycle of crap. And don't look for snakes to commit suicide, because that just doesn't happen. I've stated the problem. I do not have a solution except that. Maybe we need some different kinds of snakes. I wish you all luck and happiness, peace within. No fear, no regret, no anger. Thanks for watching.